evening. Good evening. Welcome to the show, to iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. I'm Alan Campbell, and this is my co-host, Karen Ford. First of all, let me get started off by saying it is the opening day. Well, it's the beginning of the baseball season. I'm a huge baseball fan. As you can see, I got to support my team. Support my team. Go Sox. Die hard. And it's beginning of the season. A lot of people are pretty much ready for it. I know I am. And me and Karen were talking about that. And she had an opportunity to go to a game some time ago and sit in a club box. So her experience now is completely changed. She wants to sit in the club box. But we're going to get right into this, to tonight's topic. Tonight's topic, the title of the show is called Girls Gone Missing. Now, what we're going to lead into or get into is that there was a report of anywhere between 15 to 20, 25 African American girls, and we're talking in the ages of 13 to between 13 and 24, I believe, that have missing. Now, the sad part about this is that there is no media coverage. No NBC, no ABC, no CBS, no WGN, no Fox, no CNN, none of that. None of that. There's not one iota of news talking about that. But let me tell you, but if you get the other people, some kid, some child falling down in a hole, you'll have the whole community and will be on the news from this time till it'll be from today all the way through the end of the month. And we'll still be talking about that.
Yes, we will.
African American women that are going missing. Now, there was something that a police chief said in reference to this. He said that, and I quote him at saying, well, not a lot of resources in this because these people were deemed runaways. I'm sorry. Does that, what you're doing is that you're diminishing, that's your way of diminishing the situation of who these people are. These are people. These are someone's daughters, someone's sisters, mothers, aunties, whomever. You even fix your lips to say something like that to completely diminish the fact that these individuals are going missing. And it wasn't I think it was the late 90s. Here in the city of Chicago, there were two young girls that went missing, and to this day, there's no trace of them. They can't even find them.
Oh, the Bradley sisters.
The Bradley sisters.
Yeah, they've been missing for 15 years.
15 years. And that was one of the rare stories where the media actually stayed on top of it, stayed on top. They got the community, and this was one of the times that at the time the community actually gave a damn, to where people were actually out beating the bushes looking for these two children. These two little girls left their home to go to the store, left their mother a note, and they haven't been seen or heard from since. Here, now let's fast forward 15 years to now, 2017. Have more of African American girls, women and girls going missing. And this is just in one area, but this is the unfortunate part, is that this is a situation that goes unreported, underreported, or don't care. And sometimes the unfortunate part is that when we go into a station and say, my loved one is missing. Well, how do you know they're missing? And they'll give you 11 different reasons on why they don't want to really interact. Years ago, it used to be 48 hours before they actually can do something. Well, between the time that an individual goes missing and the time that you actually have response time, that's what happens when what they call the trail goes cold. And a lot can be lost in those 48 hours.
That's true. Just to give some statistics with this, um, the Black and Missing Foundation reported that 64,000 Black women and girls are missing or were missing nationwide. And in DC alone, they have recorded 501 missing children in just this year. However, the New York Times reported on Friday that the Metro Police Department's Youth and Family Services Division sought to put out, to put this issue out in front of the public, out in front of the center, utilizing the hashtag Missing DC Girls, which actually came about because the commander of that division, which happens to be a Black lady named Chanel Dickerson, actually put that out. Now, the DC Police Department has been saying that even though these young people are missing, these young Black girls and women are missing, that there has actually been a decrease in the number of missing people within the DC area. However, again, the statistics show that nationally, about 35% of missing children are Black and roughly 20% are Latino. Now, that's according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So they said Washington, D.C. is not unique or out of the ordinary for this number of missing children.
And that's really unbelievable to a certain to that's unbelievable to have that many people go missing, especially African Americans, and have that number at 35%. And then and then the other part that's really disturbing is that these are people that not reported missing, or the fact that law enforcement, and this is not to throw law enforcement under the bus, and I want to make that clear. But when your law enforcement community lacks the resources, this is the gateway for them not to do it doesn't, you're not giving them the resources to do the job effectively. Mm-hmm. The same thing goes with up the chain, to where if it's even state, given the resources to do this. Then when you go to the federal level, the same thing. Well, and even to a point with the federal level, they have the resources. It's just when they decide to get around to it, to exercise that. But we have to remember, these are people of color. And we're not, and this is also for Hispanics also. These are people of color that are going missing, that there's being said they're not important enough for us to do anything about. And here's where we have the disparity about people of color and others. They're going to turn over every stone. They will scour the earth looking for these people. But us and Hispanics, we'll get around to it when we get around to it. It's like going through a drive-through and asking for a Big Mac when they're telling you we're out of meat. You're a burger joint. How can you possibly be out of meat? That's the same principle of you go to law enforcement. Well, we don't have the resources. Your job is to provide a service for the public. That means that, hey, you get what you can, you get what you have, and you use that, and you go out there and start looking for these people. Mm-hmm. Look for them. When you have children and missing children, and when we're talking about children that are the ages of 2 and 8 that go missing. And there is no sense of urgency. And the other scary part about when these individuals go missing is that when they go missing and there's no viable lead to where you can find this person, to where there's no activity on their social security number, there's no activity on their credit cards or any type of transaction that being made, that's definitely a cause for an alarm, because now they are either in a state where they can't get away or get out, or they're no longer with us and maybe being even parceled out for, the black market for body parts.
And there is a black market for body parts, as well as a black market for sex trafficking and some other
Exactly.
things.
Exactly.
And when
And
we talk about this now, this weekend, actually over the past 3 days, there has been a market increase in coverage, but it's just been in print media. It
mhm.
hasn't been, it has not been on the electronic media, but it's been in print media. The Washington Post, the New York Times, Slate Magazine, all of them had some coverage over the past several days about this, but mostly it's been because some members of the Congressional Black Caucus have pulled together a coalition of some of the members and have actually reached out and asked the federal government for assistance. And it is only because those people asked the FBI and the federal government for assistance did this actually start making the rounds within the print media. Prior to that, there has been very little, if any, coverage, and there hasn't been any electronic media. But to go back, part of the reason why, if we remember this, and this is something I saw from the Denver Post in 2013, they were saying that the reporting was because there was a lack of newsroom diversity, there's a lack of media ownership, and also the heads of the news operations. There's more attention given to young, attractive white girls. And just thinking about this, within the past 10 years, there was a huge focus on Natalie Holloway, who disappeared in May 2005 in
Right, right,
Aruba.
right.
John Benet Ramsey, who eventually they found murdered in her own home. Elizabeth Smart, who
Elizabeth
was
Smart.
missing for 9 months and finally returned to her parents. Kaylee Anthony, who was missing, and she was a little girl. I mean, she was younger than 5,
Right.
and I believe her mom convicted of her murder. And just this year, the investigation Discovery Channel has had several specials about John Benet Ramsey, and they have one upcoming about Kaylee Anthony. So again, all of these reflect around young white children that have been taken. There has not been anything like this about the Bradley sisters who've been missing 15 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just recent, this was, I believe this was in 2013, where they did a small piece on the Bradley sisters about their disappearance and the level that it got to, and the level that it, well, actually the level that it got to and the level that it didn't get to with the Holloways and the Anthonys. It did not get to that point. Once again, little black children, as you said, attractive white women. That's the difference there. If there's a balance, yeah, the balance is here. The balance is, okay, who's more important, and why does one become more important than the other? Girls have been missing for, as they say, forever and a day. Not one single, and it's, you get to a point now, you got it right about now, because I believe that they were I think they were 5 and 15, 5 and 8. So right,
Something
and then
like
something
that.
like that. So
Mhm.
they're almost grown. So, and even wherever they may be, they probably have no recollection of things gone by, to let alone even that anybody's even looking for them.
The family holds a vigil every year. The Chicago Police Department says that the case is obviously still open. The private investigator that the family hired is still investigating, and even was quoted as saying that he was not going to rest until he found those children. But I did also see there has been some speculation that those two young ladies were taken by their dad, who happened to be a gentleman. I don't know if it was from Sudan, but it was from one of the African countries. And so there was also
Mhm.
speculation that they weren't missing them and took them back to his native country in Africa. But again, that is merely speculation.
Merely speculation, and that's the hard part about that, about speculation. There's not a lot of ironclad evidence to really to really go on that. I mean, you can look at it, but if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. When we're looking at this situation now, and right here in the city of Chicago, and right now they don't have accurate numbers on how many people, girls, are have been reported missing or are still missing. Keep fluctuating, and when your numbers keep fluctuating, that means that no one is actually they don't have real numbers, so they're not really putting a lot of effort into that to really give you something to go on, and that definitely is a serious problem. You and the other thing that we have to do, if we want to make our case the same way that white people do, we have to embolden ourselves and force people to get out in front, to put this on it, to keep it in the media, talking about it each and every day, all the time, keep hammering away. And that's the only way that we're going to be heard about this situation. That's the only way it's going to become important. It's the only way it's going to become newsworthy happen. Because the worst thing about someone going missing, whether it's a woman, whether it's a man or woman, or a boy or a girl, missing is missing. And when you have nowhere to look, nowhere to start, no clue, hardest part, because time goes by and you're wondering, are they in trouble? Are they in a situation to where they can't get away? These are the things that run through your mind. The other part is when we begin to address the situation of some of when you classify an individual as a runaway, that also creates a problem, because now there's no, once again, law enforcement doesn't feel it's a sense of urgency, because now this person, you deemed them a runaway. So how often does this person go missing? Do they leave? If you're the parent and you're saying, well, they've done this before, they've been gone 24 hours, they've been gone 3 days. Now, when day 4 comes along and say, okay, well, I haven't heard from them. How is anyone supposed to respond to that? Because now you say you don't say anything day 1, you don't say anything day 2, but then day 4 comes along. So that makes that kind of pushes things in the wrong direction of saying, I need your help. I need you to find my child, or I need you to find my husband, or I need you to find my wife. Puts everybody at a disadvantage.
Yeah, it does. It makes it difficult for law enforcement because, as we know, anybody who watches a crime drama, they always know that the first 24 hours or the first 48 hours, first 48 are the most critical. It's when memories are and fresh. It's when clues can be found. It is when the most important person's life, they're questioned, they can follow up, they can get leads. When we look at, even I believe it was last week, a couple of times where they were able to find that some child almost was taken off one of the streets here in Chicago while she was walking down the street. And so when you see this kind of things, it allows the authorities the capability of getting right on it, to find those clues that we may ignore, but that they recognize there's something to this.
Right. And that's what makes it so important, to where we're talking about missing or runaway. And we want to address both of them, and really make a distinction between the two. Is that if you have your young children, and especially these young ladies that are out here and have completely lost their way. And so then what happens is that then they gravitate to all the wrong people, and the wrong environment, and associate with the wrong environments. At that point, as a guardian or parent, this is where you step in and find out who these people are that your son or daughter with. And even as an adult, who these people are. An association. Who are they dealing with? What type of people are they? We had a situation that's all in the news right now, and that's with this 15-year-old girl that was assaulted by 6 individuals. Now, this young this this situation where this young lady left her home, door, and then she didn't come back. The mother's completely panicked. This is the same thing. The young lady, when she left with someone that she knew and was put in and was lured to this location. Once again, here these are things that what we just said are lured into. Someone tried to scoop up this child on their way to school, being lured. And we have to be cognizant of where our children are and where they're going. Most importantly, who they are with and associating with. Times we've gone where to be on the bus or on the train or in our car, and we'll see the smallest of children.
Yeah.
See that all the time, and you're just saying to yourself, they can't be any more than 7 or 8 years old. They can't be any more than 12 or 13, and then you have the 12 and 13-year-olds trying to hold on to the smaller ones, and you're saying this is that is a incident looking for a place to happen. And to figure out what happened. What happened to my children? Why are they missing? How's that happen? Why does that happen? So, with that being said, we're going to take a break right now here at iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. We're going to be taking phone calls also when we come back at 708-233-8953. That's 708-233-8953. Oh, sorry, 223-8953. Excuse me, I'm a little dyslexic right now. It's been a long day, but I'm going to repeat that, 708-223-8953. And we're back here at iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. We are talking about girls gone missing, and most importantly, about how African American girls are going missing, and it's underreported, and where we're at with this. We talked about some numbers that we were dealing with, some things in DC, some things in Chicago, and we touched on, and there was some things going on in Atlanta also. And the other gateway too of individuals going missing is through the level of technology that we have. Right now, you can be on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, social media, and you can actually interact with someone. But at the same time, this is almost ways of people grooming individuals into, and then things go bad. There was a story of a father. He found out that his daughter was conversating or interacting with a gentleman on through social media. Now, unbeknownst to the father, or unbeknownst to the individual, he didn't know that he was interacting with this man's daughter, who was 13 years old. So what the father did, he began to act with the person on the other end, pretending to be his daughter, and he continued to interact with him until the point where he finally got the individual comfortable, invited him to his house. This individual showed up at this man's house. Now, it don't take a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist to figure out what this individual's intentions were. The moment that the individual showed up at this guy's house, the father opened up the tallest can of industrial size whoop ass on him. But the thing too is that had not been aware of this, and this individual shows up, would have happened. This is the other things that happen that we have to sometimes be cognitive of who our children are interacting with. And you said that sometimes it's that they are interacting with invisible people. Now it's becoming invisible people.
Yes, yes, they are. And we have to also be cognizant of the fact that we no longer live in a world just 20, 30 years ago where you could let your small child, go to the store, walk to school alone, do some other things. We are now living in a time where that is no longer possible because we have more predators. We've always had predators. We've had predators since the beginning of time. But now predators have become smarter. They have been able to use the internet in order to find children that are on the web or whatever, and they're not supervised. And so they don't, and because it's invisible, they don't know who they're corresponding with. But mostly it's simply because we just don't live in that world anymore. We don't live in that age of innocence anymore, where our children can be alone outdoors and we don't have to worry about it like we did when I was a kid. We were all outdoors. Parents were in the house doing whatever they were doing, watching the news, cooking dinner, and we could be outside and we could play and we didn't have to worry about anything. So in addition to some children living in places where they have to dodge gunfire, they have to dodge gangs, they have to dodge initiations and all kinds of things, they also have to be cognizant of those predators that are just wandering the streets or driving or on the other side of the internet who are looking to hurt children. And we also have to talk about or think about revamping the Amber Alert system, because you would think with this many children, and I realize that some of them are young adults, but those children, those people who are under the age of 18, there should have been an immediate Amber Alert.
Absolutely. I totally, absolutely. I agree with that as far as that is concerned. And that's where when you're activating an Amber Alert, that's the individual that's the parent missing and saying, this is what I need. This is what I need. Now, to go to backdoor these girls that are missing. Where are the loved ones, or have they taken it? That have they taken the necessary steps to push this along to say, my child is missing, my sister is missing? Have they taken those necessary steps? Have they forced the hand of law enforcement to do their job, to do what they are paid? They are civil servants, to do what they are paid to do. Have they taken that necessary step? And sometimes we don't, as African Americans, we don't take those necessary steps to say, I don't want to, I don't want to do this. I don't want to interact with law enforcement because of this or this. At the end of the day, when you're in trouble, there's three people that you call upon. You call your mama, you call God, and you call the police. When you're in trouble, those are the three people that you call.
And not necessarily in that order.
And right, and not necessarily, exactly, not. But when you are at your worst or at your lowest or your most terrifying moment, that's what happens. Because it's not a person that's listening or watching say that they haven't done it. All have at some point or another. And I'm sure that these individuals that are missing did the same thing, have done the same thing. Where are the love? Where are the where's the family? Why haven't they taken the initiative to step forward and say, this is unacceptable? This is unacceptable to who we are. We are not lots. We are not numbers on a board. We are not lots of that are being parceled out. We are human beings. Flesh, blood, breathe. We do everything. Where does the outrage come from? Both sides, from the loved ones and from the law enforcement community, or even, here's the other thing, from the black leaders.
Well, I think that was part of the reason why they did the coverage this weekend, is because finally those black leaders did appeal to the federal government, and they've even talked about trying to hold a town hall where they can, where they can pull the community into this. But on the other side of that, the mayor of DC, said that there is no increase in the disappearance. However, she did admit that this particular issue shines a light on the disparity between the rich and the poor and the black and the white.
Yep.
City of DC. She said there's no epidemic, but she says this issue is causing people to see something in DC that they rarely see. Because we may remember for quite a number of years, DC was a predominantly black city. And now blacks are no longer the majority, just they've fallen to under 50% of the population in DC. And if there is any place where you can see the great disparity between rich and poor and black and white, that's one of the major cities where you can see that. So even though the mayor, the police department, they're saying that this isn't a big increase, this isn't that the numbers have actually gone down, and the number of missing people that they have had over the past several years, it may not be an issue to them, issue to us.
Oh, absolutely. And on the national average, a person goes missing every 34 minutes. National average, 34 minutes. So you're saying that roughly that's 24 people in a day that come up missing. And then if you're doing the math every day, 365, that's a lot. That's just an astronomical number. But when they say that, well, the numbers are going down, that would be the politically correct thing to say. Well, the numbers are going down. We don't know that. How do we know that? You're not showing us the numbers. You're only saying the numbers are going down because now social media's got a hold to it. The Black Caucus has now addressed this, and now it's working its way up to the DOJ and the FBI and all of this. Now we have to do something about it. So, oh, no, the numbers are incorrect. Out when you have a number that says a person goes missing every 34 minutes, how can you justify that the numbers are rescinding if you have this happening every day? And this is every day, 34 minutes, every 34 minutes each day. It sounds like this, you're contradicting yourself. So which is it? Is it actually happening, or you're just telling us what we want to hear? That's what it sounds like. And just to appease the masses, so to speak. No, it's not that bad. It's like a car crash. Well, oh, it's not that bad, depending on the crash.
And depending on who's in the crash.
Depending on
who's
the crash
in the crash.
and who's in the crash.
But the thing of it is even though they speak about the numbers going down, the thing is one child missing is one child too many. Really is. And to just say, well, the numbers are actually going down. They were saying that at one point in time, I think there were 2,300 missing in DC in 2015. And now I think the number is down to 2,100. That's a lot of missing individuals. I mean, that's the size of a very small town that, or some of the huge high schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's the size of a small college campus of missing people. And to think that, yes, some of them are probably have been kidnapped by family members, because that's certainly, some of them might very well be runaways, but even still, if they're runaways, they are still missing. And even though they may be running away from a situation at home that is very bad, they could be running to a situation that's even worse, because we know that there are predators, pimps particularly, who are looking for those runaway children, those people who come into a city like Chicago or Atlanta or San Francisco or New York, and they are specifically hunting for that runaway. When we look at those kind of numbers and we look at those kind of things, and we also have to look at the fact that some people are taken and placed into the sex trade. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen very much with Black children, because as we know around the world, as we talked about last week when we talked about standards of beauty, a lot of times white girls and white women are taken to be exploited in the sex trade, but that does not mean it doesn't happen to Black children as well. Maybe not on the grand scale, but it most certainly happens. So there are any number of reasons why people, again, I just have to stress the fact that one child missing is one child too many. And you and I even talked about a couple of years ago when the 200 and something girls were taken. What was that? Burqa. I'm not.
Well, they were taken by a radical group, Boko Haram.
Mm-hmm.
There were 200 plus girls. I mean, taken. It's completely taken. There was, once again, no outcry, no outcry, no. Hey, we need to do something about this. We need to deal with this. No, none of that. No, absolutely none. Within recent times, some of them managed to escape. Like you said, one child going missing is one too many. Whether it's here in the United States, whether it's in whether it's in South America, Africa, it's still a disheartening thing. One child going missing is any child going missing is one too many. And when you have that going on and it's not addressed, or it's addressed in a manner that it's put on the back burner, or we'll get around to it when it becomes important enough for us to deal with, that's the part to where, hey, there has to we can no longer tolerate this. Tolerate what is being given to us or what we're told to accept. One of the things that has happened way too long. This is the way it is. No, it's not. Deal with what you want me to take, and that doesn't happen. Shouldn't happen. One of the things is that we have to be proactive on where our children are. That years ago they used to chime in on the radio at 9 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? This is the other thing that has gotten away, is that some individuals don't know where their children are, who their children are associating with. And the inevitable or the unfortunate happens, then now we want to become proactive. Now we want to do something about it. No, wait a minute. It's like closing the barn door after the horses got out. It's definitely too late. It's not where what you're sending your child to the store or to school and they don't come home. That's one of the things that does happen. But when we don't know who they're associating with, most whose house they in and who they're associating with. This is a gateway for something bad, unfortunate, terrible to happen. You get a group of young men, 13, 12, 13, 16, 17. Explain to me, why are there two 14-year-old girls in that house when everyone else is pretty much of age? Why aren't you someplace else other than? Your parents know that you down the block, or you on the other, or even worse, you're on the other side of town, and they don't even know that you've left the neighborhood. Oh, I'm in trouble. Where you at? I'm at so and so. What are you doing over there? Well, by the time it's too late to ask that question, or something's happened, or they don't come home, and you have 4 or 5 people who were with them at the time, and not one of them. Everybody has the same story. I don't know, and I don't know. You know something, because he, she, or they were with you. Were with you from the moment that you all got together, and you don't know what's happening. Or they're in us, and there's a ton of grown people. What's wrong with you? This creates this environment. This creates that gateway of individuals going missing, whether it's of their own free will or whether they were taken. Create them. Sometimes we create things for ourselves. We create them.
Well, I agree with you there. And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the fact that times have changed. So your child go out without supervision or whatever, but it also means our older children, those kids are preteens, teenagers, or whatever. There was a time when, like I said, we congregated within our neighborhood. And so if we were going to so-and-so's house, we knew that, our parents knew that that was at Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so's house. A lot of parents nowadays don't know who their kids' friends are, because a lot of those friends no longer live in the neighborhood, because once again, they're on Facebook, they're on Snapchat, they're on a whole lot of other things. And so they're meeting people. So the internet in its wonderfulness has opened up the world to us. But in another way, it's also opened up the world to people with bad intentions. And so a lot of times, because this is a new world, because we don't live in the age that we used to live in, people are a little bit, I don't want to say they're trusting of their older kids or of kids who are preteens, but it's just, they accept the fact that they need their space, they need whatever. Now, I can't imagine a teen or a teenager any adult in my house saying I needed space. Their basic feeling was, you got the space that I give you, and that's it. But because we live in a new age, more freedom than they used to have. And so that makes it possible for them to be at this person's house or that person's house or here or there. They have more autonomy.
Yeah, yeah,
But what they don't have, and that's something that we need to teach them, is we need to teach them that with that autonomy comes responsibility. Those two things go hand in hand. So you're responsible. You need to let me know where you are. And it's not because I'm trying to you or I'm trying to keep you from seeing your friends, but it is because if I know where you are and something happens, I know where you are and I know how to reach you. And we want to give our children freedom because we know that eventually we're going to have to let them go. But we have to walk a delicate balance. Delicate balance. And with the internet thing also, one of the reports that was done this weekend was by Slate magazine, and their whole thing talking about this particular issue with the Black girls that were missing was the misleading post that said that the girls were missing in a 24-hour period that got a lot of celebrities or whatever in an uproar. And so again, focus is taken away from the missing girls and put on the fact that there was social media that misled, misinformed, or whatever. At this juncture, I don't necessarily want misleading news, but I appreciate the fact that. And so even though it was misleading, it was erroneous information, it meant that that information was out there and that people who didn't live in DC say, we need to do something about this issue.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yep. You're so right. And to piggyback off the thing about misinformation that was given, and that was true, that they said that they went missing in a 24-hour period, and that's misinformation. And sometimes information can lead to misinformation instead of, let's do some fact checking, let's check our numbers, let's look at this from another angle and see how true this is. And um, the other thing that you mentioned was different. We most certainly are in a different time. We really are,
Yeah.
and we're no one is disputing that. To where, no, you can't send your kids, for not even for that much, not even your kids, but it's anyone, adults or children. It's difficult to send them anywhere, for them to go anywhere without the risk of something happening. But and times were different, to where out on you out in front on your stoop or out on your porch, that's where you were. If you left the front of your house, or you was outside that gate up the block without permission, you had to answer for that. And or if you wanted to go over the next block, and you may have had friends that lived on the next block, well, pretty much knew who lived on the next block and whose house I was going to.
Oh,
You
yeah.
knew, everybody knew. You knew everybody. You pretty much knew everybody that was on the block. And then if you have a friend that lived 2 or 3 blocks the next block, or 2 or 3 blocks over, you knew that. As a parent, they knew who they were. They knew their first and last names. They knew what car they drove. They knew the address. They knew who all lived in that house. They knew what kind of people they were. In retrospect, to say, we don't we're not trying to keep a noose around, trying to keep them, hold their hand, but at the same time, we need to know where you are and what's going on, who you're associating with, because in the event that something happens, you have a reference point, you have a point to where you can start. Hey, they were over here at Mr. Johnson's house, and from my house to Mr. Johnson's house, it's an 8-minute walk, and They don't have to cross any major streets. They just have to come up the block. That gives you something to work with. But if you have no, and we're at an age where a lot of parents don't know who their children's associates are, and they don't even know the parents of that child that your child is associated with. They don't have an address. They don't know what these people do. Or last night, he's supposed to be over his friend's house, or she's supposed to be over her girlfriend's house. Well, do you know who they are? Yes. You got any type of information that we could possibly go on. And what that is that the mentality is that I want you, hey, go do what you do, just leave me alone. So you're just tossing them to the wolves, to proverbial wolves that are out there and that look and hunt and wait for things like this to happen. It's almost like you take these children and you throw them away and you hope for the best to say, oh, okay, we and this is where we're at now, because how many times you going up the block, or you've seen children out beyond past 10:30, 11 o'clock on a school night, and you're like, shouldn't you be at home? Where are your parents that they're not saying you need to be in the house? Then this is the individual that something happens to, and then you wake up the next morning and say, oh, wow, what was 12, 13 years old? What's he doing out at 2:30 in the morning, 11:30 at night? What is he doing? This all too often. And this is the downside. This is the backside of missing. Now this person is missing forever. From this point on.
Yeah, it reminds me of back in the day when, and you probably remember this, you had to be in the house when streetlights came on.
Yep.
There was no question of when you had to be in the house. And there was no question on your block when everybody else had to be in the house. Everybody had to be in the house when the streetlights came on. And if those of you who are young people out here listening and you're thinking, oh my God, I tell you, there's a world of fun that we had prior to the streetlights coming on that you just would not believe. But you talking about knowing your friends, whatever, it reminds me of it. And I'm going to tell a brief story. When I was a teenager, remember back in the day we used to have house parties?
Yes.
All the time.
Yes.
And you couldn't wait till Friday night or Saturday night when there was a house party. Well, because I was raised by a single parent and it happened to be my dad, he would take me to every house party that I would go to, or my friends and I would go to. He would walk up the stairs of the porch, ring the doorbell, and wait to see if a parent answered the door. The parent answered the door. He'd introduce himself, tell him that I was his child and that these other kids were with me and they were there to come to the party. Was the most embarrassing thing on God's green earth for me. And there was sometimes he would come in the house, and when the party was over, I'd come upstairs and he was still there talking to the parents of the kid that was giving the party. It was highly embarrassing. But now that, and I have girls and boys, thank God they're all grown, but I have girls and boys, I recognize what he was doing. He wasn't trying to embarrass me. What he was saying is, I care enough about you to know where you are, who you're with, and whether or not there's adult supervision with all of these hormone raging teenagers.
Yeah. I remember the same thing, to where I would get driven to the party, call me when the party is over. If there's a problem, call me. I will come and get you. This and like you said, that's when you took your child, you took your children or child. You chatted with. You wanted to make sure that a parent, not somebody that is 18, they don't make them a parent. They don't even make them. They're not even. They're not to that point yet. They're looking for the parent of that other children, or whoever the person in the house. That's who they were looking for. And when you had that, there was an understanding between the two parents. There was an understanding, most important, it was an understanding between the parent and the child. This is where you better be when I come back to pick you up. Not up the block, not over here, or not down there. I don't want to hear anything about, well, I'm going to get a ride. No, I'll come to get you, because I don't know who you're getting in the car with. I have no idea who you did, because you run across the right Johnny Law, and the person you in the car with has something that they ain't supposed to have. The trip down, down to the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going, whether you knew about it or not. Accountability, responsibility, and this falls upon both the parent and the child to say, when you come together, you work together. You work together on that. So, with that being said, on another exciting show of the Chronicles of Rohn, that is our time. That is our time. That is our time. So we do enjoy. We enjoy our show. We enjoy you all listening out there. We enjoy you watching. If you're watching us here on Facebook, if you're watching us on internet, we appreciate you here at iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. We will love you. Be safe, parents. Most importantly, parents. If you have small children, you have children of age, teenagers, know who they're associating with, know where they're going. Be a parent, not a friend. That's us. That's Karen Demai. And this is Alan. We are out of here. See you all next week.
I was thinking about that coach.
Let's stop.